Terry? You're here but muted, correct?
I am, but I also am trying to get on via video and it says it won't let me.
Well, we've got the cute dog.
Barney?
Yes, sir. I'm looking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Brian Kaplan called me earlier today and told me that he may be a little late tonight. So he said to start without him, but he'll join us in process.
Right. No, I spoke to him also.
Okay.
And,
Actually, Brian's on the screen.
Kaplan? Oh yeah, he's here.
He's here. We can see you too.
there he is. Good.
Never mind.
I don't mind. That's why I was going down the list, and I think the only person that we're missing at this point is Lori.
Right, my video is working now. So.
Yes, it is, with a Giants baseball shirt. It's nice.
I'm sitting on the porch today.
Good for you. It looks like you're moving on the porch.
I am now.
Call Lori. I'm sorry, what, Lori?
I'm trying to hop on right now on my tablet, but is that why you're calling?
Yes, it was.
Because you missed me. Okay, it should work now. I just have to reset.
All right, I'm gonna hang up. Technology, Brian Kaplan, Donna, Roxanne, Technology 2, Cal, Chris, Dan. Oh, Dan Berg's on, so we have to be careful what we say.
You're just going to start being careful?
We're always careful.
Oh, she's actually here.
Good. There's Lori. Lori, do you want to just say hello? No, she was here.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hello? Okay, great.
All right. Well, everyone can take a stretch because we have 2 minutes before the official, the dime drops at 6 o'clock. Before we get started, I just want to say I'm so glad that everybody is safe and healthy, given the situation that we're struggling through, and it seems like it was going on forever, but I guess we're getting some new opening coming up. But I think it's just, terrific that everyone is safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Jesus, what was that? Oh, I don't know how to turn that off, so I won't. All right, is everyone ready?
Yes, sir.
Hearing no objections, the regular board meeting of the Park District of Highland Park is called to order on Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 at 6 o'clock p.m. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein,
Here.
Commissioner Grossberg,
Here.
Commissioner Flor Swicekoff,
Here?
Vice President Kaplan,
Here.
President Ruttenberg.
I am here. I'm now going to read the disaster declaration that allows us to have this type of meeting. The governor has issued a disaster declaration related to public health concerns because of COVID-19, and all or part of the jurisdiction that affects the Park District of Highland Park is covered by the disaster area. As president of the Board of Park Commissioners, I have determined that an in-person meeting conducted under this act is not practical or prudent because of said disaster. Likewise, in compliance with the capacity limitations caused by the disaster, public attendance at the meeting is not feasible. Therefore, the Board of Park Commissioners have made alternative arrangements in the manner described below to allow any interested member of the public access to contemporaneously hear all discussion, testimony, and roll call votes. Moving on, are there any additions to the agenda?
Nope.
Cal? Anybody?
No.
Hearing, okay. Lori, Cal? Hearing none. Executive Director Romes, has anyone from the public submitted any emails to be read aloud for public comment?
No, they have not.
Thank you. We'll go to the consent agenda. There are 5 items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move.
Terry, that was Terry? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We'll give that one to Cal. All right. Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Grossberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Flor Swicekoff, Vice President Kaplan,
Yes. I get it?
Yes.
Vice President, okay, thank you, and President Ruttenberg.
Yes, the motion is carried. Unfinished business. We start out with the 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or the CAFR. Dan Berg, partner in Sketch, to present.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Dan, I was going to introduce you, but I guess President Ruttenberg already has. But with us this evening is Dan Berg, partner from Sickage LLP, and they are our new auditors this year. And he is going to walk us through a few key items of the CAFR and other exciting things. So Dan, I will turn the mic over to you.
Thank you. That was an interesting year to begin an audit relationship. We were able to come out for field work before year end and then came out for final field work the week of the shutdown. So we are very grateful to staff to allow us to continue working on site. I think the finance department and auditors were the only people in the building for the most part. So we felt pretty safe and we had their undivided attention for the most part. So we were able to get in and out very quickly and work on the report and get this out to you in a timely manner as well. Unfortunately, our administration people that run the report aren't in the office for the vast majority of the week and weren't able to run this report, so you have it in hard copy form. We'll be doing that in the coming week or two and get that out to you. So I hope you bear with me looking at this PDF. There are certain pages that will face each other. So while it might be a little difficult to read with the words on one page and numbers on another, that won't be an issue once you get your hard copy. So I apologize for that for this meeting. It's a pandemic. We haven't been through this before. So with that, again, thank you very much. Great cooperation from the staff. That yielded the opinion you see before us. It's the best opinion we're allowed to give. It's commonly referred to as a clean opinion. We refer to it as an unmodified opinion, and it states simply that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects. That's what you pay us for. This is the only part of the report that's truly ours. All the rest of the report is pulled from representations made by management to us. So with that, I'd like to remind the statement in that position. So toward the bottom of this page, this is, I'll remind you, is the full accrual page statement. Includes all of the long-term capital assets and all of the long-term debt, including IMRF and all bonds and OPEB related items, other post-employment benefit related items. There at the bottom, we see your equity position. In governmental accounting, we break that down by whether or not it's spendable and how it is spendable. So the very top line item is your investment in capital assets net of depreciation, accumulated depreciation and related debt of $37.8 million. We have some restrictions that would be the fund balances in these funds that were taxed for a specific reason and can only be spent for debt service and special rec. And then the unrestricted portion is the amount that is available for spending of the district. So congratulations, a very nice equity section there. The following page is the statement of activities. Again, full accrual, includes depreciation, shows that the net position increased by nearly $3 million. So if your constituents were to ask you whether you're better off economically at the end of this year or better off than the prior year, this would be what you would point them to. Yes, indeed, you are 3 million to the positive. The next page is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. So this is on a modified accrual. That's why we refer to it as fund balances as opposed to equity or retained earnings or some other term. This would be on a current resources basis. So no long-term assets, no long-term liabilities. And again, we display the fund balances in the order of spendability or lack thereof. So the non-spendable section of prepaid and inventory, that money has already been spent to create those assets. But we do show that the general fund and the has nearly $3 million, and the recreation fund has $4.6 million of fund balance spendable at year end. We also show the significant fund balance for the capital project funds available for this year's and next capital projects that you recently began. The following page is the statement of changes. And this is one of those pages where we're going to have some of the words on one side and the numbers on the other. Again, this will face each other. But it does show significant excess of revenues over expenditures of the general fund of 1.5 million and almost 3.5 for the rec fund. A lot of that was transferred out to fund the capital projects. After transfers, still had a net change of fund balance in the positive of 900,000 for the general fund and about break even of 56,000 for the rec fund. If we go near the top of the page, we can see that the general fund brought in $838,000. We labeled it capital intergovernmental grants. That's the impact fees from the city. So that's what created the overage. Without that, still would have had a positive year, but much more positive with it, obviously. And then toward the bottom of the page, we can see the change in fund balance of only $4,000 for the debt service and $271,000 for the capital projects fund. Significant amount spent in the capital projects at 2.7, but that was offset by the transfers in from general and rec. And the debt service was funded significantly by those transfers as well. So behind the notes to the financial statements, we show required supplemental data. And this is the budget to actual page for the general fund. We're required to show your adherence to the budget, your compliance with the budget, appropriations, budget and appropriations ordinance, sorry. And that's how we demonstrate that here. The fund was initially budgeted to reduce fund balance by a little over 400,000, but it increased it by over 900,000. So finished to the positive by 1.3 in comparison to the budget. The following page is the similar page for the recreation fund, budget to actual. And again, this one showed that fund balance would be drawn down by 50,000, but it actually increased by 55,000. So finished ahead of budget by $106,000. The next page we're talking about is the IMRF. This is shown for illustrative purposes. I've boxed, if you want to go down to the next box as well. We see that you have been consistently over 100% funded as a result of the bond issue that was done several years ago. So you're one of only a couple clients that I have, or perhaps the firm has, that has been consistently overfunded in their pension funds, even for IMRF. And the interesting thing is the box, above that percentage, the first box, shows that the net investment income fluctuates wildly from one year end to the other. This is always measured at December 31st. And that causes the large fluctuations that you see down below in the amount of overfunding. So it's nothing you can do about it. It's simply market driven and a point in time measurement that causes that. There was, Mary Lynn, did you want to also talk about that? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Is there another page you wanted me to hit?
Oh, you know, I have this, the spreadsheet for the IMRF just so we can show what our percentages have been over the past 10 years. Is that not showing on people's screens?
Not yet. We're still seeing the CAFR.
Okay, hold on. Let me pull that up. I'm gonna share screen sharing. Hold on. Sorry about that.
No pressure. So what we did is we took the page from the CAFR that only showed 5 years worth of funding, the required contributions versus the actual contributions. And I added several years going back to 2010. The reason that this page changed is GASB issued a statement that changed the way we report these. And so we started from scratch basically in 2015 and we'll show it prospectively as opposed to retroactively. This is showing retroactively, but similar information where back in 2010, the district was paying well over $600,000 for IMRF. That climbed in 2014 to 931,000. And if you combined in 2014 is when it only showed 9 months because of the change in fiscal years back then. So that's 500,000. And then it began dropping significantly since then because of that payment to IMRF to get fully funded back then. And now for 2019, the contribution required was only $73,000. So one of the lowest rates in the state, about a little over 1% there for 2019. So that's dropped from a high of 13.5% down to 1%. So that will be a significant savings for your taxpayers going forward. Congratulations. That was, that talking point came as a result of the Finance Committee meeting. Is there any sorry. Do you have any questions for me on the comprehensive annual financial report? Is there any pages that we didn't cover that you would like to?
I have a question, if we're just opening it up, or Barney, how do you want to?
No, all right, well, go ahead, Terry, start. This is a time for questions.
Okay.
We'll start with Terry this time.
Thank you. I just have one question, and it's just kind of a philosophy question. So back at, you made a point of highlighting that we have 3 million more now than we did when we started the year. And that if a constituent came and asked us, are we better off or worse off? This is the number we should show them. So knowing that park districts are different from businesses, I understand that we have to keep a 25% barrier there. Is there an optimal number? And I'm not sure that this is for Mr. Berger, or is this for Brian Rome's? Is there an optimal number we should be shooting for so that we're balancing that we're taxing or taking the correct amount from the public? Do you understand my question? Is there a sweet spot there?
Yes. So basically, the district has come up with a fund balance policy that requires a floor, if you will, of funding that the district has determined they're comfortable with. The general fund is over that floor of 25%, but the recreation fund is over that as well. So the fact that you have increased your equity position at the end of the year is good, but you're right. The question is always how much is enough to hold on to, and part of that answer lies in your multi-year capital plan and how you will be funding that. So a number of park districts fund their capital with a combination of profit from various funds and bond issuances and proceeds. And the effort is to try to maintain a very level property tax rate from one year to the next combined. The short answer, I'm not sure what your appropriate level is, especially since I don't have enough history with your jurisdiction, but Moody's and Standards & Poor's on your ratings calls and those types of outside measurements and ratings would be an indication as well of whether how much is enough or how much is too much. I'm not sure what their response was from the ratings call and whether they liked your trends or not.
I thought they were great. I mean, obviously we received a AAA bond rating.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the only question, they had questioned the spending, you know, how much we had spent on capital over the past 2 years, but that was, you know, reasoning behind why we were issuing bonds so that we could do some capital construction and, you know, Rosewood Beach, the establishment of them. And they dug through probably the past 10 years or so of our financial data, but, you know, he did not seem concerned by it. And obviously, you know, he thought we were doing good and we did receive our AAA bond rating.
And I think you brought up some really good points, Dan. I mean, we have a very detailed 5-year capital plan. And in 2015, we approved our Greenprint 2020 comprehensive master plan, which identifies future projects, both funded and unfunded. So, you know, we're always trying to look at both of those, look at future projects based on attitudes and interests of the community for development, but also the most important thing is to ensure that we have enough for our capital repair and replacement items of our current infrastructure that keeps our parks and buildings operational. So obviously what we're looking at.
And a significant amount of that increase was the $800,000 received one-time fee impact fee from the city. So, you know, you have to take that into consideration as well. That inflated your net profit for the year, if you will.
Okay, it may just be a discussion we need to have as a board, just so that I can be educated, and maybe other board members too, as to, you know, what is the optimal number? And it seems like if we're being rated and people are considering that, and we are still coming out AAA rated, then it seems like then we perhaps have achieved that ultimate spot that we're looking for. So that answered my question. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's go around. Cal, do you have any questions?
So is that $2.9 million, we're calling it profit? You know, that's the, I guess the generic word. Is
Right.
that before the transfer to the capital fund?
So those would net out because you're literally moving money from one fund to another. And this is the combined number between all of those funds. So they net to zero.
So that's the net change in position. So regardless if money was transferred to the capital fund, we're still, their net position is still $2.9 million to the better.
Right. And generally speaking, moving money to the capital fund means that you're going to spend it.
So if we defer projects from 1 year to whoever's dog's barking, can they please mute their phone? Thank you. So if we defer a project from the capital that was supposed to be paid out of the capital fund, let's say we've deferred for a year, would that also increase that change in net position number?
Not necessarily. Normally, when you spend money in the capital fund, it becomes a capital asset. So it would simply move from a cash asset to a capital asset. So it stays in the assets, but you would be cash poorer, if you will. So it wouldn't really change the equity, except that if we go to the preceding page, it would move money from the spendable, the non-unrestricted, up to the net investment in capital assets, if you will.
So that
stays in equity, but non-spendable then.
Yeah, okay. So that change in net position, does that include fixed assets, and just cash in the bank, so to speak, or is it just,
Yes.
So it's both?
Yes, it includes the impact of increasing or decreasing capital assets, depreciation, increasing debt, and payments down of debt. It's the full accrual number.
So it's not necessarily we have $2.9 million more in the bank. It's just that we just, can you explain that? Can you expand upon that?
So if we were to go to the change, let's see. What's the easiest way to explain this is where I'm going. So page 11, page 35 of the PDF, please. So this shows that the increase in fund balances was about 1.3 million combined for all of the funds combined. So then as you page down, you can see the effects of moving that number from a modified accrual number to a full accrual. So we increased capital assets by 1.8 million. We had depreciation that will draw down that profit figure, if you will, by 2.7. There was a loss on the disposal of capital assets. Usually that's simply because a capital asset was disposed of before it was fully depreciated. We had some very small changes in the long-term liabilities. And as you go down farther, the change in IMRF was less than $100,000, but we did repay debt $2.55 million. So all of those items combined is how you get from modified accrual to full accrual.
So if we wanted to see,
is that where you were going?
Yeah, that's very helpful. If we wanted to see what the net profit from operations, where would we find that number?
So operations without depreciation,
yes,
more or less on the modified accrual basis. just basically fees and property taxes coming in, salaries and.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking a
Maintenance.
simplistic way of,
Right.
basically what our revenues, what our expenses were for the year, what was the net profit or loss from operations?
That would be on PDF 33 and 34. So more or less your change in fund balances without the effects of buying capital assets or paying down debt. This is more the short term. So buying a capital asset shows up as an expenditure here, a reduction of fund balance, and paying down debt does as well.
So where's that number?
So
What's the
down, I'm helping Mary Lynn point. The excess deficiency
Wow.
revenues over expenses, and then the effects of the transfers below that going, but those simply go to another fund. So if we go to that section on the following page, to the total column. Slide down, there you go. So about $1.3 million was
Okay.
what you added to your fund balance from operation. Does that help?
Yeah, so Terry, that's kind of the number you should be focusing on. That's my opinion, at least. What the number you should be focusing on is that what kind of, what we're, obviously it's a balancing act trying to, so we're not overtaxing our taxpayers or charging too much for our programs, yet we're, but still trying to create some type of value so that we could transfer and try to transfer money to future capital projects for consistent with our 5-year capital plan. I think that's the number we should be focused on. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's the number that helps us determine how we're doing it with that balancing act. Dan?
It's a short-term view versus a long-term view.
Yes, but we're I guess, we're trying to do both actually.
Right, absolutely. Mhm.
as
So, and again, that 1.3 million includes a one-time impact fee of $800,000.
Got it. So we're really about 500,000 because in my experience being on the board, we've always tried to be between 800,000 and $1 million of actually, of the net profit from operations to be transferred to future capital projects. And looks like based on the fact that we got an $800,000 payment from the city for impact fees, actually last year was slightly less than what we've experienced in the past. And correct me if I'm wrong, anybody.
Well, that's helpful. That is helpful to me because I would love to be able to explain that to somebody who is concerned about their tax rate or the amount they pay for a fee or whatever for participating with our park district programming. So this is great. Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
Cal, do you have any more questions?
yes, if this is the time for questions, because I wanted to go over the deficiencies that were noted in the audit.
Oh, Cal, we're gonna get to that next.
Okay.
The management letter next.
Then, and again, I appreciate, we spent a lot of time walking through this audit at the finance committee, and I answered a lot of my questions. I was just trying to formulate, at least in my mind, to answer Terry's question to get to that point. So I appreciate it, and that's all I have.
Lori, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Brian? We'll assume that Brian Kaplan does not have any questions then.
Okay.
But, I would just add, as my 2 cents, shall we say, that when the budgets are being prepared, Terry, taking into account, this year is going to be a strange year, but taking into account what it's going to cost next year to operate the district and what the capital projects are, we have to then go back to the dollars, and that's the 1.3. Does it give us latitude at that level of fees, at that level of income, to maintain the district and every year do better than we did last year as far as programming and as far as our operations.
Yeah.
So if there are no further questions, is there a motion to approve the 2019 comprehensive, I'm sorry, did I miss?
We were going to go to the management letter, and we can approve.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought that was the wrap. Okay, let's do what you're doing.
Okay, sorry. All righty.
So the auditor's communication to the board contains a couple of sections to it. And the second section is literally the required communication. The first is a letter to try to explain it. And then the second section is the meat and potatoes of here's where we would tell you if we had any issues, disagreements with management, if management was consulting with other auditors, what changed as far as principles and accounting principles. And then we talk about any of the corrected and uncorrected misstatements, which would be our adjusting journal entries. That's followed by the actual journal entries. We only had 3 outstanding number. That's tremendous that we only had 3 adjusting journal entries, especially as new auditors to the district, where sometimes we have different ways of reporting things than other firms like to see things a little bit differently. But we were able to work through that very quickly, and we only had these 3 relatively small journal entries. There were 2, the first 2 were material, but they weren't gigantic. And then the next section after that is simply the management letter, where we would be required to report to you any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies found during the course of the audit. We found none of those. We did have a couple of deficiencies, which according to our standards doesn't necessarily need to be reported to the board, but we chose, the auditors and management chose to bring these to your attention as discussion points more than, and areas for some improvement, but not necessarily anything that's earth-shattering, if you will. So we had 3 fairly small comments, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about these.
Well, we'll go around again. Cal?
With regard to the deficiencies, I reviewed those. Regarding the segregation of duties, I don't think it's really not Dan's issue to talk about it. He's raised the issue. My suggestion is that at the next meeting or the following meeting of the finance committee that we discuss how we are structuring those duties and those responsibilities, and then bring it back to the board so the board can have that discussion, because he raises a good issue. I think that I don't want to put the staff on the spot right now to actually go through those, but I think that maybe we can have that as an agenda item, and then we can report that back to the board if this is fine, or we should make some changes regarding the segregation of duties. The second issue regarding unclaimed checks, I think that's on the audit letter every year. A lot of that is either refunds or small items, refunds, or frankly, kids who work for the park district not cashing their checks. It is something that is just habitual. Hopefully it's getting less now that we have direct deposit, but that's something that doesn't really concern me. And lastly, I wanted to thank Dan for being the new auditor, coming, especially under these trying times, to come in and produce this quality of a document that we spent a lot of time with the finance committee talking about it, and he was he was able to answer our questions and make it simple, so country lawyer like me could try to figure some of the stuff out. So I really appreciate it, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Terry?
No, the only thing I had was about Parks Foundation. I just wanted to say that being the liaison to the foundation, that they have been told by our people what you have written here. They just want to make sure that that the finances are being kept separate, so that what's written here is being communicated to the Parks Foundation. That's all I wanted to say, because I've been hearing it myself. So. but no comments about what it says. It's fine.
Okay. Lori?
No, I understand everything. Thank you.
Good. Brian Kaplan?
No, thank you, Dan.
And I have no further questions.
I just wanted to point out that the comment on the HR versus finance and payroll is not a material weakness, not a significant deficiency. As an auditor, we like to see as much segregation of duty as possible or additional reviews put in place to ensure that everything is okay, and that we're being satisfied to that extent.
Excellent.
Thank you, Dan.
Are we able to now move to an approval?
That would be wonderful.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Cal?
Nothing for me.
Terry?
No.
Lori?
No.
Brian Kaplan?
Nope.
Okay. Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Grossberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Flor Swicekoff,
Aye.
Vice President Kaplan,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
Yes, the motion is carried. Dan, thank you very much. We appreciate the guidance, and we will take up that topic of the separation of HR and finance issue. As Cal suggested, it'll be a finance committee discussion. And thank you. We appreciate how clearly you laid out the stuff that has thrown most lawyers for a loop, and most of us who aren't lawyers for a loop. So thank you again.
My pleasure. And as always, I work at the pleasure of the board. So if any questions come up in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd happy to take your call or email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Nice job.
Yes, we should echo. Nice job. Rosewood Beach Boardwalk, Jeff Smith.
Hi there.
It's been trimmed.
I just took a shower. At the May 12th workshop meeting, staff and Smith Group have reported to the board on the conditions at Rosewood Beach, including the boardwalk along the lower parking lot. It was reported that the section along the north side of the parking lot that runs along the side of the ravine is leaning toward the ravine. So staff have requested a proposal from Smith Group to investigate this and develop a solution. So Smith Group has gotten back to us with a proposal. It's divided into two separate phases. Phase one of their proposal would have Smith Group conduct site observations, review all of the existing drawings, also work with Park District staff to identify the likely cause and also develop some potential solutions along with some cost estimates. Their fee for phase one of their proposal is $16,850. Phase two of their proposal would be to create the construction documents for the approved solution. So staff is recommending that the park board approve or authorize, I should say, the executive director to enter into an agreement with Smith Group for phase one of the Rosewood Beach Boardwalk review and repair proposal in the amount of $16,850. Are there any questions?
Start with Cal.
Is there anything dangerous and hazardous that needs something immediate attention?
Not that we are aware of. I mean, the boardwalk is open now. We're not under the impression that it's an immediate danger.
So I understand. So the first phase is that they're reviewing the existing, whatever existing construction documents we may have, and they're doing site visits. And are they going to be giving us a recommendation? Is that part of the?
Yes, they would. They would, the deliverable would be multiple solutions. And then we would, from there, we would potentially select one, and then we would move into the next phase, which would be construction documents. And there is no fee determined at this time for phase 2, because that would obviously be based on the scope of the potential repair.
Are we anticipating multiple options to repair?
It's likely that they would come up with more than one option, yes. But I think it's difficult to say at this point, not knowing what the likely cause is.
And do you feel $16,800 is a lot for them to review drawings, to do a site visit and to review it, and to and maybe come up with some type of maybe multiple options? It does seem kind of high for that type of investigation work.
Staff feel that it's actually in line with other work we've done and with other consultants.
Okay, all right, just seems high. All right, thank you.
Terry?
Well, that last question was going to be my question, that it did seem extraordinarily high. Does that money, if we spend it, do they do what some contractors do and things like that? Do they take that off of what ultimately, if we decide to do work with them, does any of that come off of that?
Well, no, if we were to move to another phase, the fee that would be associated would be strictly for that next phase of work.
Okay.
Lori?
Hi, I'm okay.
Brian Kaplan?
The only question I have is if we get the proposals and we elect not to do the work, will they become stale at some point in time and we'll be redoing these proposals down the road?
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Yes.
Oh, so it's unlikely. I mean, I guess what could happen is if they're to determine what the cause is, it should be something where we would be able to implement it at a later date, depending on what the cause is and what that solution is.
Okay.
And I would also, I'm sorry, Brian, was there another question?
No, I was just thanking Jeff.
All right, I would also assume that when they do the report, they'll tell us if there's an urgency to doing a repair. So that might go to your question, Brian, about whether we might be able to defer it or not. So is there a motion to approve phase 1 of the Rosewood Beach Boardwalk review and repair proposal from Smith Group?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Come on, guys.
I'll second it, whether it's appropriate or not. Is any further discussion? Anybody? Hearing.
I'll second it because I don't want you to go to jail. But
All right, I withdraw my second. Show Lori as the seconder.
I will second. What I've seen and noticed is there's always a jump to do 2 and people just speak over each other. I just kind of wait it out. So I will second it this time.
Okay, good. If there's no further discussion, Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein,
No.
Commissioner Grossberg,
No.
Commissioner Forrest Weisskopf,
Yes.
Vice President Kaplan,
Yes.
President Ruttenberg.
Yes, the motion carries. All right. Brian Romes, we're going to withdraw the conduct ordinance review, correct?
Correct.
All right. That'll come back at a further iteration at a subsequent board meeting. So now we'll go to COVID-19 Emergency Operations Planning Update. Executive Director Romes and Director Carr.
Thank you, President Ruttenberg. So as many of you may know, on Monday, the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity released Phase 4 guidelines of the Restore Illinois plan. So what that means for Parks and Recreation is that there are new standards in place for opening up new facilities and new programs. including our indoor facilities. So we're going to focus on two areas this evening, one being the Recreation Center of Highland Park, but we're also going to talk about Rosewood Beach, because as we go through these phases, this is obviously the first, we're experiencing these phases and these guidelines and these rules for the first time. So we do end up making some changes as we transition into opening up facilities. And we've taken a very careful, cautious approach, making sure that we address safety. But as we go through this, we do have some updates. So those are the two facilities that we're going to focus on this evening. But of course, if there are questions regarding to any other of our facilities, happy to answer those as well. But I will turn it over to Director Mitch Carr to go over those two areas.
Thank you, Brian. We're going to start with Rosewood. So as you know, Rosewood Beach did open to swimming. We opened on Wednesday, June the 17th, which was a few days earlier than we were originally anticipating. But through the hard work of the Parks Department and the aquatics team, we were ready a few days early. So we did more or less a soft opening. And we started with a capacity limit based off of guidelines, the COVID-19 pandemic, set at about 225 patrons. In the first 5 days, the beach really saw a lot larger crowds, typical crowds, certainly due to the nice weather and increases in non-resident utilization. After seeing 225 people actually on the beach, staff was able to make adjustments in maximum capacities while still ensuring that social distancing guidelines were being followed. So we've been able to set new capacity limits at 275 this past weekend and still feel very comfortable with how things are being laid out. And we do have patrons who are even using the interpretive cove, as a place just to sit, not to swim. And that helped with some of the capacity limits. Still, with these increases in limits, the beach did reach capacity 3 of the first 5 days. So to assist with the management of access control, staffing levels are going to be increased this weekend. We've hired more park ambassadors. We're going to have 3 staff present at the upper parking lot to inform and enforce parking and entry fees for non-residents. Staff will be requiring all patrons entering at regular non-resident access points of Upper Rosewood, so the stairwell and the ravine trail, to show proof of residency. And all non-residents will be continued to required to pay the $10 per person fee up to July 2nd. Then starting on July 3rd, non-residents will be required to secure a new season pass, beach pass, and access will only be granted for non-residents with this pass. So in essence, the day fee for access to non-residents will be going away. It'll be a requirement to secure a seasonal pass. That again will start on July 3rd. So from now until then, we'll still have the day pass option, and we'll be communicating out to not only our resident community some of these changes, as well as to the non-resident community as well. So the seasonal pass will cost $100 for an individual and $25 for each additional family member. Passes are going to be available for purchase at the Recreation Center during the hours that the Recreation Center is open. And all non-resident pass holders will receive a wristband similar to like the Live Strong wristbands that are reusable for the season. That's how we'll be able to identify the non-resident pass holder. Non-resident parking will still not be allowed to for any non-resident up until noon. That's something we started this past weekend and certainly has helped. And then in the afternoon, non-residents can park at Upper Rosewood. The fees are still the same, 15 per hour and 40 for 4 hours, and that will be enforced by the park ambassadors. In keeping with similar fee structures, we are allowing children under 3 years of age not to be charged for any type of admittance. That's similar to our Hidden Creek Aqua Park structure as well. Residents who would like to avoid having to consistently show proof of residency at the entry points can also receive that same seasonal wristband at no charge. And those can be secured at the guardhouse by just registering, since there is no charge to that. So at this time, I'm happy to take any questions regarding, current access at Rosewood, current operations at Rosewood, and answer any of those.
So we'll go around. Cal?
So if by charging the non-residents, are we going to be in compliance? Are we violating any covenants with any grants that we have received for Rosewood Beach?
So it's a good question. As the board knows, the renovation of Rosewood in 2015 did have an OSLAD grant, and OSLAD grants do require that you provide equal access opportunity for non-residents. The fee structures are within the guidelines of the OSLAD grant. For specifics on that, I certainly will lean to Jeff or Brian, but they do follow the guidelines.
Jeff, Brian, did we verify that?
Yeah, we did verify that. And I don't know if, Jeff, you want to get into the specifics, but I spoke with corporate counsel as well, and we are in compliance. Do you want details on what that verbiage says?
Oh, I don't know if you need the details. I would like to get something in writing from our corporation counsel saying that we will not be in doing anything inconsistent with any of the covenants of any of the grants that we've received for Rosewood Beach. And assuming we get that, I have no problem with what you propose.
Terry?
Could you come back to me?
Sure we will. We'll go to Lori.
Hi, so I spoke with Brian Romes this afternoon a little bit about this, and my concern is that it really doesn't solve the problem of our residents being able to get in. And it's a tricky thing. It's my understanding that parking is limited, restricted to non-residents up until noon, right? But then they can park after, or is it before noon?
It's
afternoon.
That non-residents could park.
Afternoon, after 12 o'clock, we're saying. Afternoon. Okay. So, I saw the letter from the resident. I know there's been others, but how can we give our tax-paying residents priority? And I understand that it's an OSLAD grant, and that's, why we can't restrict and turn people, non-residents, away. But again, how can we give our residents, quote unquote, like an advantage? Are we counting how many people come down? When do we stop how many can come in?
Well, I can speak to the capacity limit. We basically have not only the park ambassadors, but the park ambassadors are more from the enforcement standpoint. The manager of the beach for the day is keeping count of patrons on the beach. And once we hit that 275 threshold, we stop entry. We certainly allow patrons to wait at the upper Rosewood Park, and as people leave, we can let the next person that was in line in. My understanding of the OSLAD grant, we can't provide any type of priority access. What we can provide is, easier access. So we have the lower lot, of course, and we have the upper lot that we can restrict certain access with certain times of parking, but the actual opportunity to enter, the only thing that we can do is charge a fee that's within the guidance of the OSLAD grant. We can't provide more priority to a resident versus a non-resident. But again, if they're saying anything wrong, let Jeff or Brian please jump in.
So are we actually seeing that is the bottom lot being filled by residents? Are we seeing that?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, on busiest days by 10:45, 11:15 range, we've seen that lot full, and it is residents because we do have an ambassador there as early as 6:30 checking as people come in. But as we get closer to the actual opening, they're always sitting there.
Okay, so if someone parks there, can we assume that they got access to the beach? Or can they go down there and it's already full?
To the lower lot is what you're saying.
Yes, I'm sorry, the lower
Yeah.
lot.
In the beginning of the day, I think it's pretty safe to make the assumption that if they're getting there at the beginning of the day and before the lot fills, they're going to get access to the beach. It's typically the problem is, let's say we have a full capacity on the beach, and somebody leaves from the lower lot, we still may be at capacity at the beach, and we might have a spot open. You know, we are certainly trying to prioritize, but if somebody's waiting to come down the stairwell, we have to kind of manage it that way first. Typically, people don't wait at the gate if they drive down to the lower lot. They don't just sit there. We usually let them know we're at capacity, and we do have the rain out line that we're trying to communicate out to residents as well. So when we hit with capacity, they could check the rain out line and come back when capacity has dropped.
Are we able to limit the time that people spend there? Or that's not within the OSLAD restriction?
If it's equal, in other words, we can limit for residents and non-residents.
Okay. All right, that's a tough one. Like I said, I just don't like seeing residents unhappy that they can't access their beach and others can before them. But this is a tricky one, I guess.
Okay, let's go back to Terry then.
Right, I understand that people are sneaking down the sides and getting in, which is a great, what I was talking to Brian Romes about earlier today is that this hopefully is a one summer problem. If we can put the best possible face forward this summer and try to keep the unhappy people away from the people that aren't sure what their feelings are yet, I believe that this sets us up for the future to be just an unbelievable dynamo where our beaches are packed because we have a lot to offer. So I understand the issue. I think that increasing security down there, I floated the idea of maybe having, more than just ambassadors who seem like perfectly capable, nice people, but maybe also some more official looking people down there. Because if you have people worried about health and other things like that, that's a different issue than who's in my beach. So I think it may behoove us to move to have a more formal type of person down there, just so somebody can feel confident that we are doing everything we can to maintain order down there. Because if we have a wonderful summer there this year, we're going to have amazing summers for many, many years to come. That's my only comment.
And I think Terry brings up, two options as far as concerns. There's the who's at my beach and are we being safe? But then there's also the people who just want access. Like, this is our beach. Why don't we get to access it? They're willing to share. That's my concern. It's the residents who don't get to use it if they go, let's say after work or at 3 o'clock and it's packed. And as far as, I do think this is a one-time, it's just a tricky summer to get through. And what's making it more challenging is that we have people coming from other communities because their beach is closed.
Yeah, and the pools are closed, and the camps are closed, and all of this stuff is hopefully just a one-year deal.
But it gives us some thought for what we might have to do in the future. Brian Kaplan, any
Yes.
question? Your turn.
As one who's gotten a lot of these emails, first of all, it is a different summer. Part of it is there were posts on Facebook that we're the only free beach around, and that drew people. But the emails that I'm getting are people not just using the beach, not being able to get down there, but not safely using the beach and not wearing masks or exhibiting social distancing. So I think I agree with Terry that we do need somebody. I don't know if the ambassadors are kids or not, but this becomes a problem. I think we need someone with more authority to enforce those rules. But I'm glad we're doing something more for the constituents. I'm glad we're responding to the emails we're getting. I do have two questions though. I realize we can't do the buses because of COVID-19, but are we doing parking at Ravinia School for people to walk to the beach this year?
Yes, we're still providing that as an option. And I know that if that lot fills, people do park in and around that area on streets where there are parking available. And that's where most people are walking in from.
And are we monitoring the Ravinia School parking lot? Or can we monitor the Ravinia School parking lot for payment from non-residents for the parking fee? Because that's part of the deterrence.
Are you asking do we have somebody there collecting parking fee if they use the Ravinia School lot?
And I guess my question is, do we and can we?
We currently do not. And I don't know if we can or not. I'm not sure with it being District 112 property. Brian, I don't know if you are aware. Or if we just
Yeah, I think we can, but the challenge becomes we would need another staff member then to sit there all day. So we certainly can add and keep adding. I think we're trying to find that breaking point of where is the line of the appropriate amount of supervision, I guess. And so we have not staffed that parking lot.
I think to start, we should staff that parking lot to set precedents for people coming from out of Highland Park to use the beach. At least in the beginning.
Brian, why don't you look into that, and especially with our relationship with District 112, I'm not sure who's really running that lot or managing it. But Brian Kaplan, also keep in mind that if somebody parks on the street, it's the equivalent of parking at the school lot.
I thought street parking was limited in the summer in that neighborhood.
It's the Ravinia restrictions, and and the city's not enforcing them. Am I correct, Brian Romes?
That I'm not sure about. I have to check on that.
But keep in mind also that while we may not be collecting parking fees, with this new approach, we will be collecting the access fee on the season pass fees.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. Thank you, Mitch.
You're welcome.
All right, I have one more thing.
Sure, Karen, go ahead.
I'm sure you guys already thought of this, but whenever someone buys, I assume when someone buys a season pass, it does not guarantee that they will get access to the beach because it's subject to the capacity. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So you're gonna have them sign something?
Yeah, I think right now what we've seen is there is some verbiage. We're gonna have to update an FAQ sheet, I think, for Rosewood, so that it's on our website. It's gonna be with our hotline team when they get questions. We could put it in the information that they're gonna sign up for.
Yeah, I would think that I would make sure that this is my opinion, is that whatever form that they sign in order to buy the season pass, that they initially would acknowledge that the season pass does not guarantee access due to subject to capacity limits.
Okay.
Yep, you can look in that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So should we go to the rec center now?
Sure. So the phase 4 guidelines did come out yesterday. They do address fitness and allows for some additional capacity and will allow us to open up, still with limited capacity, the rec center a little bit more. So the phase 4 guidelines do allow for a 50% capacity limit for fitness centers.
Brian, Mitch,
Yep.
did you say 50% or 50 people?
50%.
Okay.
So that's kind of twofold. It's 50% building, and it's also 50% for areas within the buildings. So for example, the fitness, general fitness center area would have a capacity limit, and we're allowed 50% of that as well. So really, when we look at our rooms, we'll never reach the full 50% capacity of the building limit because of the limits on the rooms. So Because of that, staff has determined to help with maximum utilization capabilities that we're going to be moving some cardio equipment from the fitness floor and move it down to one of the gyms on the lower level. So this will allow us to space the equipment out on the fitness center more to meet those social distancing guidelines, as well as capacity limits. With that configuration, if we're just talking someone who wants to come to the rec center just to work out for fitness, not attend a group exercise class, but just for fitness, we could accommodate 70 patrons at one time. So with that, there are certainly additional guidelines. So for example, face masks will be required when you do enter and exit the building. And when you're in any common area trying to get to these fitness areas, when you're in the fitness area, you're not required to wear a face mask. You can, and we would certainly encourage that, but it's not a requirement. Patrons are going to be required to register for a time to use the facility so that we can make sure that we have a way to control capacity limits and also not, get a situation where somebody shows up and we're at capacity and they're getting turned away. So we can do this through our registration software on a daily calendar. Each time block has been designated to be 90 minutes in length. We do 15-minute breaks in between there so that we can properly get people out of the building and then allow time for people to check in for their new time slot. And during that time, we would be doing some cleaning. But also know that there's a lot of, especially with the guidelines, there's a lot of cleaning that is going to be mandated that will happen during that 90-minute interval that's going on. It's required that patrons are wiping down their equipment. So we will be upping the number of stations of wipes. And to keep within guidelines, the requirement is that you have what would be considered really an attendant for every 4,000 square feet of usable space that you have. So in the case of the upstairs fitness center, we're going to need to have 2 attendants that make sure that cleaning is being done, so they'd assist in cleaning, but also that social distancing measures are taking place for all the patrons. We'd also have to have 2 stationed downstairs as well. So we will have to increase staffing to meet the guidelines. The facility itself will be open similar hours to what it is right now, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On those longer days, we are going to do a 1-hour break in the middle of the day to do a deep clean. That's going to happen from 1 to 2. And then a deep clean will occur at every day at the end of the day. One of the advantages that we were going to also have happen was once we did the deep clean on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 2 p.m., we would offer that slot to more highly vulnerable or senior populations because the place would have just got deep cleaned. So that's one thing that we want to add in when we go ahead and open up. At this time, locker rooms are going to remain closed. The guidelines allow locker rooms to open, but the guidelines are very strict on the type of sanitation and disinfecting that has to happen. And right now, it's literally every hour you have to fully disinfect and sanitize the locker areas. It's a lot of square footage. So for the capacity that we have, with the pool not being open yet, we're going to keep the locker rooms closed. Membership right now will not be activated. That's because of the capacity limits and the time allotment limits. But what we are going to be doing is charging a reduced fee for those resident members. So our fee schedule would be $5, so you'd be paying a daily fee, $5 for resident members, senior residents and resident students, $7 for residents, and then $10 for non-residents. With regard to group fitness will continue to be outdoors where there's a lot larger capacity limits. Indoors, we are going to have some classes. They're going to be located in the main gym because that allows us the biggest capacity. And we're going to be doing some mind-body, so yoga type classes in the studio downstairs in Studio 1. All the other studios, so the spin studio, Studio 2, and the personal training studio are going to be designated for personal training space, one-on-one personal training space. The fee structure will be the same as what I outlined, the 5, 7, and 10 for group exercise classes. So it's not an all-inclusive right now. You're paying for either access to the fitness center or access to come to a group exercise class. This plan would commence on July the 6th, but staff is working on doing a limited capacity trial days next week on Tuesday and Wednesday. What we want to try with that is we want to get everything set up and then offer some members on a first come, first served basis the opportunity to come in and experience things and give us a dry run opportunity, make sure that, we're getting feedback from them, we're experiencing what it is to operate under these guidelines. And then it gives us a few days to make adjustments before the really grand reopening in phase 4 on July the 6th. So at this time, this is kind of the general guidelines on the rec center. I'm happy to take any questions that you guys might have.
Well, we'll start with Cal.
So how many people what's the capacity of the rec center now going forward at the 50%? Or how many people are we talking about?
So for general fitness in the downstairs gym and the upstairs fitness center, we can fit 70. For a class in the gym space, so the second gym, we could fit, I believe it's around 30. And then we would have another capability to have a class in Studio 1 with 10, and then personal training. So we're probably around 110 to 120 at one given time. And most of those limits are based off of the number of spaces we have available and the capacity limits within those spaces, not the total square footage capacity limit.
And I assume the track remains closed?
Yes, the track will remain closed right now.
Okay, so roughly we can, and then putting classes aside and putting the personal training aside, how many people will be able to access the fitness floor and the cardio equipment that will be in the gym at one time?
So 70 at one time during those slots.
And what is generally, if we took like an average day, not during a peak period, how many people actually would access the fitness floor during a normal day before the COVID?
It would be typically under 70. I would say our peak times are closer to that 70 person in just the fitness center.
So it sounds like that we can, based on the spreading it out and social distancing, we can actually meet almost the entire pre-COVID demand during normal times and maybe even during peak times due to larger fitness area that's going to be available. Does that sound right?
It is right. I mean, really the big sacrifice is we're losing one of our gyms to accommodate.
Okay, that's exciting. Thank you.
Terry?
Just quickly about the fee at the rec center. Were you saying that even if you're a member, you're still going to pay because your membership's been frozen? Is that the deal?
Yes, that's correct.
Got it. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Lori?
No, I'm good with everything. Sounds like a good plan.
Brian Kaplan?
You're on mute. Brian.
Brian Kaplan, you're on mute.
I'm no longer muted. Are we closing at 2 o'clock on Fridays?
Yes, correct. Right now we have the plan to close at 2 on Fridays.
And the only time people have to wear masks is if they're in the common areas of the rec center?
Correct. Entry, exit, and any common area to get to the fitness areas.
But not on any cardio equipment where there could potentially be heavy breathing. That's not within the guidelines?
Yeah, it's not within the guidelines.
And if it becomes a problem, are we going to have something, do we have something in place to limit members to X amount of times per week if we're finding that members are not being able to get in on the slots that they want or the slots that they can?
We don't have anything in place right now. And I'd have to talk with our registration team to see if there's a way to put limits on.
I think how you guys have set it up is a great plan. Just remember, if someone tries to get in every day at 3, and they can't, you will get calls and emails and texts. So we should plan for that because that's going to be potentially a problem.
Brian, only you're going to get emails, by the way.
That's right. You're the designated recording secretary, corresponding secretary. I have a question following up on what Brian was just asking. And again, I don't know how it will work, but is it like at midnight the day before you open the registration, or can I plan out 4 days in advance? And it's like when I go to Mariano's, they give me a whole menu of times that I can get a pickup of groceries. So how are we going to do this? Because I can see everybody wants, 5 o'clock in the morning or something, and that would become unfair if the same person got it. So I'm just wondering how that works.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have Chris jump in because I know he's been working with staff and registration. I know we are able to allow, let's say, for example, that morning you decided, well, I want to go and work out, that there won't be like a 24-hour so you'd have to do it 24 hours in advance. I don't remember right now, and Chris, you might know if we're doing 7 days out or if it's less than that or more than that.
No, it's a 7-day out registration. So you'd be able to register for your day 7 days in advance.
Okay, and again, the question was, are we going to be able to limit somebody so they can't take 7 o'clock in the morning 4 days a week?
That will be a discussion we will have with registration. We don't yet know our registration software, RecTrack's capabilities to be able to limit how many registrations per week in terms of their visits. So we'll get back to the board on that.
When you register, are you able to specify a cardio machine, a treadmill, or are you just saying, I'm going to be at the gym at 7 o'clock in the morning?
It would be that you would be at the gym at 7 o'clock. You know what, we know some of the equipment, especially the cardio equipment that's higher utilized, we're trying to build a system that will provide as many treadmills, let's say, for example, available. So if we have 14 treadmills available, our goal is we try to space everything out, is that we're going to try to get all 14 available. It might be that we get 12.
Yeah.
But that's the goal.
Okay. All right. But you don't sign up for a treadmill?
No.
Do you think we should provide for that, or is it just something to think about whether we should provide for that? Because there are some people who they go to the gym for a treadmill and getting there at having a 7 o'clock time. If there's no treadmill, they may not do it.
It's definitely a good point, Barney. One of the things that we did talk about is one thing that we have in place right now that we can further enforce would be the 30-minute time limit on cardio. So you might not get it right away. You might have to do something else, but we'd have to be stronger in enforcement on 30-minute time limits if we're really seeing backups on certain equipment.
Okay, is 30 minutes a recommended workout then for a treadmill? Or is it just an arbitrary number that we put on?
Yeah, it's something that was put in our rec center membership handbook a while back when we were having equipment that we were having backups on that said 30-minute time limits when equipment isn't available for others to use.
Okay, because I know a lot of people are saying that they want to do a treadmill. That's all they want to do, and they want to do it for an hour. Mm-hmm. So that's what it's something to see if we can accommodate that in a different way. It's great that we're doing this. Before we let Mitch go, are there any other questions about the rec center from anybody?
Barney, I did want to ask / point something out. So the good news is we still have really nice weather. So usually around this time, the classes aren't very full. People are walking outside. So hopefully that'll help us to accommodate those who really want to work out indoors. I'm not sure if I missed it, but they register online, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what about our elderly community, people who don't use the internet?
Yeah, right now, one of our thoughts is, again, great point, Lori. We had kind of hemmed and hawed if we just, do we see if we have these capacity challenges, and if we don't, do we open up certain times of the day? Again, maybe that 2 o'clock time slot where it's not a reservation needed. You can, if you're a senior, you can just show up at 2. And the risk would be that if we're at capacity, we'd have to turn you away, which we certainly don't want to do, but that could be an option if we're finding that all of our seniors are just not, they don't want to log in, they don't want to do it that way, they just want to show up and try to work out. And again, that would be a time that we could designate that they don't have to sign up, they can just show up and work out, barring being at or over capacity.
Or what if we did something more like what Sunset started, in that there's, we had it too, when we have like an older, the older community, shops from 8 to 9 a.m. What if we did that for the gym? Because it's also about, if we're able to get older people in, they are high risk, and they might have reservations about being in a gym with other people in general. And these people are probably less apt to walk outside because of the heat. So they would favor working out in an indoor facility.
Isn't that the 2 o'clock hour that Mitch was talking about?
Yeah, that was our plan and idea, is right after we do the deep clean Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, at 2 o'clock when we reopen, we would prioritize that being for high-risk populations and seniors.
I think that we might want, there's senior membership, I know, is more than just 1 hour, but I understand why we're doing it this way. Are we going to allow walk-in?
Well, right now it's just the registration, but kind of what we were talking about. If we continue to have challenges with particular groups, especially if it's groups that don't want to use the registration system, we could look at maybe allowing that time block, the 2 to 3:30, as it's a walk-in, first come, first serve. If we're at capacity, we would have to turn you away. That's one group that we could look at.
Well, but I don't think I'd want to take away. I think it's a great idea to have the 2 o'clock as sort of the designated senior time. And again, I don't know if that's a good time for the seniors, but I understand the logic about having the deep clean. I'm thinking more along the point of, there are some people who don't use computers.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's a smaller group, but we have a broad community, and there's all sorts of people with computer issues or economics. They don't have it. They don't have the internet. So somehow we've got to accommodate that. So I just am wondering if we should have on-site registration, and somebody walks in, and if there's space, they can go.
Yeah, I think one option maybe for that time slot is maybe we have, out of the 70, we have 35 slots available, and then you hit capacity, but we'll welcome walk-ins up to our full capacities, meaning that it keeps spots open for people who don't want to use the internet, just want to walk in and see, if they can get in.
Yeah, let's just not do that for the 2 o'clock spot, though, because I can see, somebody just say, I'm going to go there, it's 10 o'clock, and if I can get in, I can get in. I don't know if there's any harm in that.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and I think it's something that staff probably will consider. The only comment I would make on it is, I know there was a desire to, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mitch, doing it online takes away the need to accept payment in person. So you're eliminating a interaction between the customer and using the machine. We could still do it, but paying online, the payment's done touchless, if you will. But again, all things we can consider and certainly add as we go through in advancing the phases. Or
well, why don't we also consider, and I don't want to dominate the conversation, but why don't we also consider like a 10 pass kind of thing? I'm just thinking for somebody who, I don't know, you guys work it out. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other presentation on this or comments or questions? If not, thank you, Mitch. And I guess we'll now go to the treasurer's report.
Okay. All right. Let me pull up screen. Okay. All right. So what we Do I want to go on presentation? Oh, sure. Oh, on mine? Oh. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. We had a discussion at Finance Committee meeting, and the presentation was updated financial forecast due to COVID-19. And so we pulled a few of the more important slides out of there and refined a couple just to share with the whole board and anyone else who may be on the call this evening. And the first thing we want to do, I believe we had this at the last meeting too, but whenever we are going to present forecast projections to you that have to do with COVID-19, we were recommended by TFM at a training session that we should have a disclaimer just saying that, you know, as hard as we try, things can completely change tomorrow or the next day, and just, you know, sort of shoot our projections out of the water. So while we feel good about our projections, we do not know what may come next with the pandemic. And so here is our disclaimer. All right, when putting together these new projections, we literally have hundreds of assumptions that we use. We're going to take a couple of minutes and go over some of the more key assumptions that we use in making these projections. First of all, and most important to remember, is that the assumptions we put together for these projections are based on worst case scenario data points. And so you'll see what I mean. We'll start with the first one here. We know that tax collections are going to be delayed this year because Lake County did in fact extend the payment deadline for both the first and second installments. And we also reduced what we felt we would collect in taxes this year. We know ultimately someday we'll get those property taxes, but you know, collecting them all by December 31st of this year, we're not so sure. So we did drop our collection rate on these delayed taxes to 94%. We also do not have a good figure for impact fees. We went with this roughly $17,000. We did reach out to the city. I talked to Julie to try to get something more firm. She really couldn't, you know, give us anything at this point. So that's what we budgeted for as far as impact fees for the year. We also know that we have a hiring freeze, and that should save us a little over $300,000 in salaries, plus there will be benefits. And we listed out a couple of those open positions that we're not filling. We know in athletics that we have canceled travel baseball, and we put our fall athletics figures at roughly 50% of what they're normally at. We know that we have canceled all special events for the year, and that's reflected in these projections. We know that Hidden Creek will be closed for the season, which is also an assumption. We put tennis at 50% for summer and fall versus what was originally budgeted. We do have Centennial Rentals at full capacity for the fall, but gymnastics and ice programming at 50% in the fall. We have the recreation center at 50% capacity, which I think Mitch very much just spoke to. And the pool there, we're looking to have open in mid to late July. We have summer camp at a very much reduced capacity at 10%. We have golf being almost fully operational. We are anticipating to receive an unemployment bill early this fall to the tune of $250,000. Again, that's another assumption we've made. We also assume that we have reduction to staff development, job advertising, and pre-employment physicals. We know that we are taking our brochures to a digital format in for fall of 2020, camp 2021, and winter 2021. And then we also are expecting a reduction in parks maintenance contracts to the tune of roughly $150,000. Does anyone have any questions about the assumptions before we move on to our projections?
I actually have one. It relates to the hiring freeze.
Yeah.
So have we hired anyone this year since COVID, or when did this hiring freeze start?
So it started March 13th, and this is a full-time hiring freeze. So obviously, we've had to hire some part-time staffs for the summer, such as the the park ambassadors and things like that. So we've frozen all budgeted positions that are vacant
All right.
at that time.
Yeah, in the consent agenda, you did just hire.
No, that's an agreement. We didn't hire. We're in an intergovernmental agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but even any part-time staff, that's not any front office staff, correct? It's all seasonal?
No, the only new hires that we've actually, I think we're at about 6 or 7, no, a little bit more than that, maybe 8 now, staff that we've hired for the summer for those park ambassadors. And I think we hired, we needed a new cart attendant at the golf course, which is at full capacity. So no, we're not hiring any positions. The only thing, no new positions.
Part-time or full-time, that's gonna stay on, that's permanent.
Well, part-time would be only if needed, if necessary. So this is what this is basically saying is that when we went into 2020, we had a set number of full-time positions that were budgeted for. At that time, there were about, I think, 10 vacant positions that were unfilled at that time. So we made the decision to not fill those full-time positions. So essentially do a hiring freeze. So we're not hiring any of those full-time positions. Part-time, it really would depend. I mean, if there was, for example, we needed a tennis instructor to accommodate a need to have new tennis lessons, we would hire a part-time person. Or if we, you know what I'm saying? So it would be based on to accommodate a need.
Okay,
but
I
not-
get it. I mean, I'm coming from the mindset of we have plenty of employees that we furloughed or, have not been back to work, and we should use them first and foremost before we
Absolutely.
start bringing in people from the outside. And I guess I don't mean, I understand the tennis pros. I understand those who are working directly with our residents, but anything else I think would be frivolous at this point. Let's say, Mary Lynn wanted a part-time account assistant. That would seem like, well, do we really need that? Because now's not the time to be spending money. We need to save where we can. And if we have the people to do it, I don't see that much more work coming. If anything, it's the opposite.
Yeah, Lori, you're spot on.
Okay.
That's exactly the approach. We do still have staff furloughed, which we are very sensitive to. So we would certainly want to bring those people back first if needed, but there certainly still are staff that are on furlough. So we would certainly work to bring them back first. But it's all based on, we are running very thin and as thin as we can, all based on essential needs that we would have.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? So let's proceed.
Okay. All right. So what we did, you're going to see in a moment a graph based on this data on the bottom of the screen. We are going to have all revenues are in green. So we're going to show you what our original budgeted revenue was. We're going to show you our actual revenue. Oh, here you go. Okay. So what we have here, green is going to be our revenues. And this is what we originally budgeted. As you could see at year end, we had $22 million budgeted for revenue. And the red solid line shows by month, again, across the bottom, that we budgeted $19 million in expenses. And you can see month by month what those numbers were across the bottom. Again, green for revenue and red for expense. Then what we did was we plotted with the dotted line what our actual expenses are for the first 5 months of the year through May 20th. And you can see also the actual numbers are in the bottom too, the red for expense and green for revenue. And you can see the 4.9 million is plotted right there. And that is our last actual data that we have the books closed for. Then on the end of the red dotted line for expenses are our new projections for expenses based on the assumptions that we just discussed. So originally we had budgeted almost $19 million for the year for expenses. And now we are projecting almost $14 million of expenses for the year. Then we put in our new projections, our actual and then our projections for revenue. As you can see, at the beginning of the year, we were really trending right on our budget with actual until about March, which is, of course, when the COVID-19 hit. And so you can see that our revenues did, in fact, drop off. And at May 31st, they were at roughly $2.75 million, which the numbers are shown down here, versus what we had originally budgeted at $4.31 million at the end of May. After the dotted line are our new projections for revenue. And you can see that our new projections for revenue end up, gosh, I can't see that.
15.4.
Thank you, 15.4. There's something on my screen on top of that. But our projected revenue for the end of the year is roughly $15.5 million versus our original projections of $21.74 million.
Okay.
That's that. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
You mean the little box that says talking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. We don't want you on top of my chart now. All right, now. Wait, that did not work.
Hit the next,
Oh, my little boxes are not showing up the differences.
hit the next button.
All
The
right.
arrow.
Wow.
But we can
Cole,
do
give us we had some pretty cool stuff that should be popping up.
well,
Of course.
there you go.
Okay, yes. So as you can see in the original budget, we had expected to net roughly $3 million at the end of the year before any transfers out of the general and recreation fund. And then with our new projections, we are showing that we should have net income of just shy of $2 million at the end of the year, which would give us a net difference from our original budget to our new projections based on the assumptions we just discussed, a difference of about $1.2 million. So that's kind of the cost of COVID to the district based on, all the changes and operations we've made. Again, this is our worst case scenario. We hope things will be better than what we're showing here, but we don't really expect them to be any worse than what we're showing here. So I'm going to pause on this and see if anyone has any questions just on the data we're showing here on this slide.
Let's go in different order. We'll ask Brian Kaplan first.
None, I understand them.
All right. Lori,
I'm okay, thank you.
Terry,
Understood.
Calvin,
Yeah, this is actually very easy to understand. I appreciate it. I would just my only request is that if we can get this updated monthly until we're out of this crisis, it'd be very helpful.
Absolutely. We are already working on it for our July board meeting once we have our June numbers.
Okay,
So
great.
we've got the slideshow loaded. Okay.
And again, as we talked about the finance committee, if we can be comparing apples to apples, so we're looking at the same graphs and slides this over and over and over again as each month goes by, it'll be easier
Yes.
for us to understand.
Absolutely. And we're going to make one just with the rec fund too, without the taxes, as was requested as well.
Okay, thank you.
all right, next slide, please.
Okay, and then if you've been going to finance committee meetings, you'll know we do cash flows each month, and it's a huge schedule, and we've just really picked out sort of the bottom line highlight for you. So it's so important that we watch our cash flows with what's going on right now, because like we said, we have deferred taxes, we have canceled so many programs, we're closed in so many areas, but yet we still have bills that we have to pay. such as payroll, insurance. We had to pay the interest on our debt certificates in June, which is a huge number, and we'll have to pay our bonds and debt certificates in December. And so it's important that we manage what our cash flow is looking at. Keep in mind that the combined recreation and general fund balance, the 25% reserve that we must keep on hand per board policy, is about $4.7 million. And so we've got that running across the bottom here versus our projected cash on hand at month end for each of the next 7 months. And as you can see, we do in fact maintain an appropriate reserve on hand. For those of you that were at the Finance Committee meeting when Dan Berg, the partner from Stickage, was there, the question was asked if he felt that we had adequate reserves on hand or if we had too much. He very much said that, you know, during this time with the pandemic that our reserve is where it should be, or, you know, it should be more, but it certainly should not be less than 25%. So we do look healthy from a cash flow projection, you know, right now. And if things go with our projections or better, we should be fine on cash flows. The only thing to keep in mind, again, this does not reflect transfers at the end of the year. Do you have any questions on cash flows?
Hearing none.
Okay. All right, and that's it for that part of the treasurer's report. And now we can go to the standard treasurer's report that we're used to looking at each month. Go page down. Okay.
I like the chart so much better.
Oh. Okay, well, you know, we can, if you prefer
We'll
to
work
use
on
this,
that.
yeah, we can probably go to a chart style or a graph style for this too. Not a lot to say here. A couple things we'll point out. So if we look at special rec, we are trending negative as well as debt service. And those two funds are based largely on property taxes coming through. And so as we just mentioned, property taxes are coming in slower than where they had originally been budgeted. Again, that is related to the economy and of course Lake County extending grace periods for people to pay their taxes later than normal. So we do expect these two variances to close up as more tax dollars come through. Also down on capital projects, we have a large favorable variance in capital projects, and that is because we did delay and eliminate some projects due to COVID-19 as well as you know, other factors that have come up. So we have that variance there, and we are going to be discussing capital projects in much more depth at the next Finance Committee meeting, which I believe is slated a week from Thursday. And then finally, in general corporate and recreation, those two funds are both trending favorably right now. We have reduced significantly from our payroll. Of course, our operating expenses are greatly reduced due to being closed. And then we do still have that timing difference with health insurance to about $150,000 that will catch up in December. And that's really all we have to report here. Does anyone have any questions?
No, I don't hear any.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Great, thank you. So we'll go to new business. I believe that's appropriate now. And we'll have is there a Parks Foundation update?
There is.
Ah.
So, Mary Lynn was suggesting to the Finance Committee that the Finance Committee meets soon to figure out what funds they need to reserve for a possible scaled down version of the Champions banquet event. So those discussions are going to go on between the Park District and the Parks Foundation. So the first and major issue that we talked about was sort of all of the hubbub regarding the Black Lives Matter and how the district is responding to that. And I think Brian Romes is hopping on that as we speak. So, but when I asked specifically, you know, what is the most proactive thing we do as a district, the first thing came out was the FYI program. And so, because that is including kids from Highwood in it. So a lot of the discussion at the foundation was how to get that beefed up a little bit. What other sort of ways can we support the Foundation Youth Initiative? And so there was a lot of discussion about transferring money or allocating some money to the Camp Hometown and other things like that, so that we could be more supportive of the people of color that are in our community or people that are in need. We also allocated some money for campers, that it's going to be at Brian Rome's discretion. So that was the major talk, other than our new initiative that which is the Firecracker 5K. And I was going to have Brian Romes talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you know what, and then I'm going to actually tag it over to Liz, because she's been leading that effort with the foundation. So I was going to have Liz give a quick update.
Sure.
You with us, Liz?
Not really.
You're muffled, Liz.
Oh, can you hear me?
Take your mask.
Okay, so the Firecracker 5K is going to be a virtual event this year, and the foundation is hosting it. It will be running from July 1st through July 5th. We have about 5 sponsors for the event, and participants can run, or they can walk, or they can bike in any location where they are safe and they can safely social distance. Participants will get their names entered into a drawing for restaurant gift certificates, and the first 100 participants will also receive a Firecracker 5K t-shirt. And the price or the fee to sign up is $25 a person and $40 for a family. And if people participate and they post their photo of themselves competing on the Parks Foundation Facebook page, they'll get a chance to win extra prizes. So far we have about 7 sponsors. Edward Jones at Port Clinton Square, Scott Byrne is a sponsor, as well as First Bank of Highland Park. And they are both our presenting sponsors, and we also have several supporting sponsors. So it looks like the event's doing really well. Foundation members are reaching out to friends and family and neighbors to participate. And the hope is that we'll raise a good amount of money. We certainly have through our sponsorships already, and all the proceeds will go to the SMILE Grant and Aid Fund.
So we're encouraging the board. Liz, do we still need prizes?
I believe the fundraising committee is working on prizes, but we can certainly take more. So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas on gift certificates or prizes that they can get their hands on between now and July 1st, that would be great.
I think a day with Terry would be quite the prize.
That would be an instant winner right there. I have to agree.
I'm thinking the same.
Lori, we don't always agree, but on this one, I do.
Next, I'm going to hear somebody suggesting we auction you off, Terry.
I don't do much.
I have Cub tickets. Anybody want Cub tickets?
Oh, yeah.
I got Brewers tickets.
All right. Well, thank you, Terry. Director's report. Director Romes.
Yeah, sure. So in your board packet, you did receive an updated report on all of our facilities and programs, and I think it's very exciting to see the month of June projected is moving in a very positive direction. It's exciting to see the participation numbers, obviously from a very stale May, where we could only do virtual programs, to the beginning of in-person programs in June. So tennis has been going very well. We've been introducing gymnastics. Our Park School program has continued, and as we know, we are going to be starting camp here in a few weeks. We also started camp training this week, so that was exciting to see some of the camp counselors and the lead counselors back in our building. Heller Nature Center's been doing some great programming. Sunset Valley is just doing tremendous, as are all golf courses, I think, in Illinois. Our numbers have already met what the budgeted numbers for the month were for June at this time, and so we're making up for lost ground from May, which is great. So the golf course is doing great. The driving range is also doing very well, and mini golf is really about what it normally is. It's being used, so families are taking advantage of that. Now Park Avenue is open for boating, so that's going well. Our athletic programs are having a very strong response, and I think you saw in our projections, one of the assumptions was that travel baseball would be canceled, and actually it's not canceled. We are running travel baseball in this right now, and we'll be doing more in July. So we're already going to be exceeding our worst case scenario, we believe, and so things are going very well. Other than that, we're just excited to move into phase 4 and grateful for doing that and for the support of the board and the hard work of the staff. And that's all I've got, unless there's any questions.
No, that's a lot. I mean, the reports tonight have been very, very good. This is a point where we have any board comments. Is there anybody who has a general broad-based comment or a specific comment? Well, let's go down. Cal?
Hey, Brian, Romes, can you give us a quick camp update, how we're doing with the signups?
Yeah, sure. So we obviously did Camp Hometown, which was intended to serve those families who have essential workers and they need daycare. We had about 150 spots available. Only 40 families took advantage of that. So the numbers were low, but we were very, I think those families are very grateful that they have this opportunity. And I think we had a little under 10 take advantage of grant and aid as well. So there were some families who had financial need who were able to take advantage of that as well. The big hit has really been the more the mini camps. So as I mentioned, tennis has been doing very strong. Every time we offer a tennis camp, it sells out with a wait list, and we offer a new one. The golf camp is also doing very well. We've done PGA camps. Those are selling out, and so we're offering new ones. And other than that, we are adding some new camps over at Rosewood Beach and at Heller. So we just keep adding as we keep going.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Terry?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up just a little bit with Brian Romes about some of our discussions regarding being proactive with the inclusion and with any kind of racial sort of impact that we can have as a district. I just wanted to know where you were with some of those discussions we had.
Yeah, so we had, and Terry and Brian were part of the discussion with the city of Highland Park, and there was, and the mayor ran a meeting with some of the organizers of the Black Lives Matters, the two events that had happened over the past few weeks. And we've really gotten the conversation started about next steps. So there's another meeting scheduled. The date is escaping me. I don't know if either of you remember it offhand, but there's another meeting scheduled. I believe it's this week, where we're just going to continue the conversation and really understand really better what it is we can do to actively understand the needs we can meet as a park district. We're also engaging in these conversations with our association, IPRA, IAPD. Looking at what practices we can institute at the park district to ensure inclusion and also always be conscious of social equity and social justice and issues of those matters. So it's definitely on our list of for us to be constantly looking at and engaging in conversation at this point, and soon we'll have some action items.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Sure.
thank you. Lori?
No, I don't have anything. Great points, Terry.
Brian Kaplan?
No more to add tonight.
All right, good. I don't have any topic for a closed session. Is there either any commissioner that has a desire to have a closed session?
Move
Move to adjourn?
I'm sorry?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, well, in that case, there's been
I'm hungry. I didn't eat dinner, okay?
there's been a motion to adjourn at 7:57 and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Nay, no one at all. We are adjourned at 7:58 p.m.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
All right.
Night.
Good night, all.